Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. Welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? All right, so today's encounter comes to us from a subscriber. His name is Kevin, and he lives in a very remote part of Virginia, right on the West Virginia border, in a small town called Paint Bank. And he almost didn't share this experience because, one, he to this day had no idea what it was or what they were, and two, because he still has nightmares to this day about what he and his buddy had encountered. Now, Paint Bank is, like I said, right on the West Virginia border. It's a very isolated, mountainous area on both sides of the border. And he grew up with his grandparents. His family arrangement is something he didn't want to get into. But he grew up with his grandparents. And he said, a lot of people his age at that point in time did grow up with grandparents or family members who weren't affected by addiction. And apparently this area is riddled with addiction because it's so isolated, so poor. And but I honestly, since I've started this channel, I can tell you I've met quite a few people, and I've met a variety of people, and all amazing. All just are truly, truly great people. But there's something about people from Virginia that they are the nicest people in the world. And their mannerism is so unique, but their kindness is unmatched, to be quite honest with you. And like I said, I've met people from all over the world because of this channel, and everybody's been great, but something about Virginia. So Kevin grew up with his grandmother and grandfather, and he had always kind of been interested in cryptids, the paranormal. His grandma used to talk about haints, and which is ghosts in the Appalachia region, booger, and dogmen. They used to call dogmen the wolf ape is what his grandmother called dogmen. So he's been aware of these creatures lurking in these mountains for most of his life. This experience happened to him 20 something years ago, him and his buddy. So on a midsummer day, middle of summer, hot, real hot, they have nothing better to do. They go to this region in Paint Bank called Potts Creek to go fishing. Now, they get there, and he said there's, mountains on all sides of you. It's just this beautiful but remote place. And there's a road that runs through there called Potts Creek Road. But, just, I can't explain to you. You'll have to look it up, the region, to appreciate the remoteness, but the mountains and forests. It is just dense and beautiful. Truly a beautiful place. So they're fishing, and they had been fishing for a couple of hours. They had really had no luck. It was probably too hot to fish, he said. They both were armed. They both had pistols with them. He believes the caliber he had was a 9mm. He doesn't remember what his friend had, but he thinks he doesn't believe that it was any powerfuler than a 9mm, possibly a .380 revolver. He knew it was a revolver. So everything's quiet. They're talking about next year for school. This is their last year in school coming up. And all of a sudden, they hear this just loud commotion coming from the mountains behind them, but pretty close, quarter of a mile away. The noise carries in this valley kind of region where they are, because where Potts Creek sits, there's mountains just right there. West Virginia. So they hear this just loud commotion, and what sounded like almost a language, like a guttural kind of language, not a howl, not anything kind of like a gorilla or any other animal would make. It wasn't a growl, but it almost sounded like something had speech, the capability of speech, but it was nothing they understood. And it was very loud and very chilling to both of them. They kind of look at each other like, what the hell was that? And they turn to face the woods, and they're looking, trying to see if they can see anything. His buddy at one point thought, maybe we should leave. We're probably on private property. Maybe it's moonshiners. Kevin kind of laughs that off because he's been here multiple times, and, he's never had any kind of issue fishing here. And, he's like, if it was moonshiners, they probably would have, come down by now and told us to drag ass or shot us. And so his buddy kind of is real sketched now. And they're going to pack up and leave. Well, as they're picking up, they had been there for a little bit. So there was some soda cans kicking around and stuff. And they were going to, carry out what they brought in, which wasn't a lot, but still. They had to take care of their poles, take care of their tackle. So they're getting it all together when all of a sudden on this incline that is right behind them, no closer than a full football field, they hear kind of rocks and debris kind of getting kicked down the side of this mountain. And at that point, Kevin gets this just hair right up his spine. His buddy turns, they both turn to look, and they thought they saw a person, but his friend said that's whatever that was, it was way too big to be, a person. It was half the size of a tree, and it wasn't a booger because it wasn't completely hair covered, So they're kind of now in wonderment, like what the hell is up there? And they hear more rocks and debris getting kicked down the side of the mountain again, but just off a ways, away from them. And they can still hear something in the initial spot where the rocks and stuff had fallen and where they thought they saw this person. So they both kind of look at that way, the way the second noise started to come from. And they peek back over here. And Kevin said, out of my peripheral, he said, I saw what my friend saw in the initial spot where we heard the first noises coming from. He said, and I quick turned to look. He said, I saw what looked like a hand on a tree, on a decent sized tree, and something peeking around the tree. And it looked like a large humanoid head. There was some facial hair, but he couldn't at that point see any clothes, see any fur. All he knew is there was a person with a beard staring at them and very tall. And he said the hand was just huge, just a huge size of a hand. So he now turns all the way to look and see, and it's gone. But he saw the hand, and he saw the hand kind of get pulled behind the tree. And at that almost instant, as that hand disappeared behind the tree, he hears his friend scream, "Good God, what in the hell is that?" And he turns to see his friend because he thinks his friend's looking at what he just saw. And literally at the bottom of the incline of this mountain, there is standing just this enormous human. Kevin said, I heard you talk about Nephilim, and I heard, other people talk about these things, and I've seen the video of Andrew Dawson. I've seen some videos that came out of Mexico. He said, so I didn't know if it was a Nephilim. He goes, I just always called it a giant man. And because I don't know how large Nephilim really are. And I said, well, they were measured in cubits, which is 18 inches, I believe. But according to some biblical scholars, the initial giants, the initial Nephilim, were supposedly 300 cubits or whatever. But then there is some kind of, written out somewhere, I think it is in the book of Enoch, where they state some of these giants are anywhere from 10 to 12 to 18 feet in height, ranging from 10 to 18 feet. And when I said that to him, he said, Well, I guess then we can call these things a Nephilim or a giant. He goes, like I said, I just called them mountain giants. He says, so when he turns and he sees this thing, it is standing right in that crook of level ground from the incline. He said, Jeff, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm about 250, 260, and always been a big guy. He goes, but I'm also 6'2". He said, so this thing was easily twice my size. Easily. And he said, when I saw that thing and it was just staring at us, it had not moved in one step the second it came off that side of that mountain. He said, so I immediately, very quickly, he said, because I already knew my friend was staring at it, he said, I turned my head all the way to see if that was the one or if there's another one right there staring at us too. He said, because I had the willies. He said, I felt like we were being stared at from all around. He said, when I did look, he said that same kind of creature had now stepped out from behind the tree and was standing, kind of holding the side of the tree so it could be stationary and not kind of tumble down that incline. All of a sudden, I turned back and the one my friend's staring at, it kind of bends down and does this almost like a football stance. It just bends its knees and its back is arched and its arms are outstretched and it just lets out this kind of human-esque roar. Not like a wild animal, but it was just this roar like, you are in my home, get out of here. And it still was bigger than him, bent down, and just this loud, powerful roar. Well, as that roar is, happening, he quickly hears a bunch of rocks coming off it because the ground is not, you've got a lot of sand, you've got a lot of trees, a lot of pine. So it's an acidic kind of soil right there. So any kind of pressure or any kind of weight is going to make some stuff tumble down. As this roar's going on, he hears a bunch of debris fall off the side, and he quickly turns because he knew this one was holding the tree, just staring at him, and he sees it taking steps. And he said, I grabbed my friend's arm and I said, we got to get the hell out of here. We got to get out of here. And they started to just run. They left all their fishing equipment. All they had on them was they both had their pistols with them. I think his friend, he said, I think my friend had his backpack with him. He said, but other than that, our poles and our tackle were just there. And we just started running. He said, and after you get across the, Potts Creek region, he said, it's just forest. There's no real high incline. He goes, it's, not steep, but there are some hills and we're just flying. He said, I passed my friend and he said, I'm a big fat guy. And, he said, I passed my friend. He goes, big fat guy. And my friend is a skinny little fella. And I just blew right by him. And as I'm blowing by him, I yelled at him, just run, just run. They get probably 200 feet and he hears a thump like a really wet kind of thump. And he sees his friend just drop. And he turns, and they're both of these creatures have now, this one had came off to the side and is now standing by the other one. He said, I looked at the one that I initially saw peek around the tree, and they're standing pretty much side by side. And the one that I first saw was about a foot, maybe 2 feet taller than the one that roared at us. And I looked down at my friend, and my friend's got some blood on the back of his head. And he said, I look over, and there's, this rock that is shaped, or it looks like it had been kind of chipped away and carved to a point. It was not a ball. It was not a rounded kind of ball. It looked like these creatures had kind of chipped away and sharpened it. He said, so I grabbed my friend right by the back of his shirt, and I pick him up, and I kind of look at him, and his eyes are rolled up behind his head. He said, I picked him up and I threw him over my shoulders, Jeff. He said, and like I said, he's a skinny guy. He probably weighed $150. He's about as tall as Kevin. He said, and I just started running as fast as I could. He said, all of a sudden I can feel movement. My friend's coming too. And I set him down, and I look behind us, and they're not running after him. They are walking casually after him, like prey or a predator playing with the prey. He said, quite easily, the distance that I covered, just judging by the height of the size of their legs and their height, these things could have been on top of us in seconds, flat, no time wasted, just. He said, but it was strange because they were just boop there. He said, I put my friend down, and I said, are you all right? And we just started running. He said, we hit the West Virginia line. He said, after that, he said, we stopped for a second. He said, because I knew right where I was. And I turned, and both of these things are now closer, but they are both in that hunched position. And they both yell this powerful roar, just this roar. And he said, I could hear some kind of engine off behind me, because now I'm turning and facing these things. He said, and I hear this engine. And he goes, at that point, I knew right where we were. He said, I knew we had about 2 to 3 minutes walk. But if I ran and my friend ran, we could be on Route 311 in no time. He said, I remember right where we were. And I said to my friend, we got to get to 311. We got to get to 311. He said, it was like they knew what I was saying, or they knew what I was thinking, because the second we started to run again, these things, you could hear them. They would start to run, or almost a steady, fast pace, and stop. So we get to the road, he said, and we look, because there's woods now, we look behind us, and we can't see them because the woods. We're out of that tree line. We're right on the road, right on the side of the road. And he said, we got to get to the other side. We'll be okay. I don't know if they're going to, get us or not, Jeff, but they hadn't got us yet. They could have gotten us at any moment. He said, so I turn, we get across the street, 311, and we turn. He said, and there's both of them right at the edge of that road. He said, I didn't hear a sound. I didn't hear branches breaking. He goes, I didn't hear a sound. And there they are, just like magic happened. All of a sudden, he hears and he turns and looks down the road, 311, and he sees this just kind of box truck coming, like a large U-Haul, not a tractor trailer, but just one big box on one body, one frame there. You know, I think they're called box trucks, but he said not both of them, but one of them starts to walk into the road. He said it was just staring directly at us. And I turn and I look and I see this truck coming. And the truck, I could see the guy, and he's staring at us. And I think he's honking the horn because he doesn't know if we're going to come out into the road. He hasn't even seen this creature that's chasing us. He said that thing kind of leapt. It just from its back legs, and kind of like a cheetah leaps. You know, it used its momentum and it probably, if what happened next didn't happen, it probably would have hit us and tore us apart. He said, as it's midair, this truck comes and just slams it. He said, and I saw the thing just get pummeled. I said, I watched the truck front end just kind of really just get destroyed. And I look at the driver, and his eyes are just the size of grapefruits. And the thing is laying in the road, just after being smashed. The truck is still running. He says, so by now, the guy that had hit this thing is like, his face is just astonished or, just terrified. And he sees his head, he's still in the truck, and he sees his head turn. And he turns to look, and the other one is now in the road. It had walked very quickly and very quietly, and it had grabbed the other one that got smashed by this truck and started to drag it out of the road by its foot. And it turns and just one hand on one leg and just starts dragging it off the side of the road. And they all watch this thing go up into the hills, or back to where it had come from, back up in the mountain. And the guy that is in the box truck looks at Kevin and his friend and says, get in. We gotta go. What the hell was that? And he had no idea, because all of them know boogers are hairy. Boogers don't look like a human, this human being that's somewhere between 12 to 14 feet in height, that is aggressive, but, susceptible to death. They start to get into the truck, and as he's getting in the truck, he hears this roar again. And he kind of looks up over, because now he's got a good height off the ground, and he looks over the top of the truck there, the roof of the truck, and he's looking for the one that's dragging the thing. He doesn't see it, but he knows that's that noise that he just heard. So he gets in quick and shuts the door, and the truck proceeds to go down Route 311, which would bring them right back into Virginia, right at Point Bank. So as they are starting to go, and the truck's gaining a little speed, it's not running right now, because it's not running great right now, because it had just just smashed something that probably weighed 1,000 pounds, maybe more. And all of a sudden the truck just shifts, like in this loud just smash, as the truck kind of almost felt like it got lifted up on two wheels a little bit, like brr. And they just haul ass out of there. The guy that's driving the truck is like, what the hell? What the hell? And as they get maybe 100 feet, 200 feet from where they were in that road, they look and there's a tree about a foot wide or around with a root ball, and it's laying in the road. And he's like, I think that thing just threw a tree at us. And the driver looks in his rear view and he said, holy shit, what the hell? They end up going. He drops them both off. But they're out of the woods. They're in their hometown now. He drops them off and, says, the guy says, I'm not going to tell anybody. If there's anybody asks about damage, I'm saying I got hit by a deer. I hit a deer. I'm not telling anybody that you were with me. I'm not speaking of anything. And his buddy they end up splitting ways, and he goes home to his grandparents' house, and he's just shaken and a wreck. And he proceeds to tell his grandmother what just happened. And she's got this she's just listening, because he's telling her the story of how, we're fishing, but we hear all these noise and commotion and this and that. And then there's one, now there's two. And that second one, the smaller of the two, kind of just bent down and yelled. It was like more a yell than a roar at us. And her face kind of just drains of all color. And he said, what do you think it was, Graham? Was it a booger? Was it a booger? And she shakes her head and she goes, no, son, no. She goes, I think that's what the people, the old timers, used to say lived in the mines. And a lot of the mines in this area closed down shortly after they were being dug, because they'd be down in these mines and, creating them, going deeper and deeper into the earth. And they'd come to, caverns. There'd be a solid wall and they'd blow it up and boom, there's this kind of chamber or a cavern, and with like exits coming out of it to get out of this deep kind of mine. And he's like, in the mines? How did I never hear about these? And she goes, it's just part of the haints up in those mountains. And she proceeds to kind of elaborate more on, her brother at one point had been doing mining, and when they blow into these kind of long corridors, they would literally set charge, boom, come back, and it wasn't just, a little bit of debris that had been blown out that they're going to pull out, but sure as all can be, there's these caverns. And I guess her brother had seen kind of like hieroglyphs on these walls with like pyramids and other kinds of kind of drawings, and something that looked like an elephant but seemed to have hair, and other kinds of creatures that are just drawn on these walls. But the thing of it is the pyramids. He said, how did they know what pyramids look like? How did they know? There ain't no pyramids in America. How did they know what these pyramids from Egypt, these great pyramids, look? Because that's what it looked like it depicted, she said to her. Her grandmother told him. And he's shaking his head. And he goes, well, what are they, Graham? What are they? And all she said was, they're ungodly. They are ungodly. And they live in the mines. They've lived underground for hundreds of years in these mountains. And he never went back fishing in that location. His buddy and him, they're still friends to this day. But that information that his grandmother told him, he will never forget how she said, they are ungodly and they've lived underground in this area for hundreds of years, because these folklore, or whatever you want to call it, you can't call it folklore because it's real, is true. And these creatures, there's more than a booger or a wolf ape. There are these creatures that are ungodly. And shortly, after all this occurs, and 5-6 years later, his grand passes away, and now he's got no one to share or talk about, because after this experience, he started to get real fascinated and real interested in any kind of information on these creatures he could find. He said when sometime in the early 2000s, he had picked up the Book of Enoch and started to read that. And that's when he realized that, what if these things are Nephilim? But he never wanted to share. He never wanted to share the experience. But because I have been talking about these creatures, I've been talking about portals and deep underground military base where alien genetic programs are going on, he said, I think it was time to share. He said, I'll never, ever understand or ever have the amount of information my grandma had. I only wish she lived years longer. But real interesting, because I've always thought, there's something. Even the locals in that area talk about haints, which once again are some sort of paranormal. I believe that is the term for ghosts. But to then know that there are these caverns where these things live that are just very deep underground. And he's been around these mines all his life, growing up, drinking beers in these mines, or in the opening of the mines, having parties near them and such, because it was just something to do. And, there wasn't a whole lot of kids in that area. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed today's bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.